XFX is back with a little GPU so quick it threw a letter away. Good afternoon and welcome to Turbo Tortoise Tech. 6600 XT, very interesting launch. RDNA 2, much stricter power targets. Most of the mid-range and entry-level GPUs only use a single 6 or 8 pin. This is very off pace for AMD with GPU. I know, I was an Onan 390 Crossfire owner. Yes, I had two of those bad boys sitting on top of each other. It was warm, to say the least. And just nothing from RDNA has been warm. But the 6600 XT specifically was launched at a $450 MSRP, which would have put it right in line with the 3060 Ti. And if we know anything from the 3060 Ti, it's kind of a monster. And Jay's put them head to head on the same test bench, etc., because he's got everything, because he's Jay's 2 cents. And there were, well, considerable performance gaps between the two. But that's at an MSRP of 450 USD. Locally, you will not see anything like that, whereas this is much closer to it at about 9,000 Rand is what these normally retail for, especially the more entry-level 214, whatever the model number is on that thing. But this 308 was 9,500 Rand on Evetech at the time of this filming. And at $450 plus tax, plus a healthy 15% VAT from our wonderful government, you get kind of close to like 8,000, 9,000 Rand. So that's very much, it's very close to MSRP, whereas comparatively, the cheapest NVIDIA RTX 30 series is a 3060 at like 12,000, which is like 3,000 Rand more, which now makes that like a 25% to 30% price increase to not even actually get the same performance, because you're gonna need a 3060 Ti to be better. 3060 is more in line with this. You can see where I'm going with the value proposition. So I looked at it and I was like, let's see how much further it's gone generationally. That's why I've set up like this. So we're going to be comparing it mostly to the 5600 XT to show you how much better it is than the older generation RDNA. And then I've also done some ray tracing testing on 1080p, because this is really, I think, angled at the 1080p gamer that wants really high refresh rate or really high frame rate to match a high refresh rate panel in gaming, or at someone that wants to do 1440p at 60 FPS. So let's get right into this example from XFX, which is, it's really nice to see them back in action. They actually started on NVIDIA and they've now gone over to Team Red, which seems to be their bread and butter. So the quick 308 threw away a letter because it was so fast and light. You'll notice it is significantly smaller than Asus's 5600 XT Type, and the performance or the temperature difference between these two in the exact same test was a whole 5 degrees, which speaks to RDNA's very strict power targets, which is helping all of that because, well, less power going through the card, less heat, so you need less cooler. But they've still done a really nice job, have XFX, and how they've set it up. 3-slot design, nice and short as well, and quite narrow, which means it's going to lend itself to more entry-level builds. So you can give that entry-level PC quite a swift kick in the pants. Because it only needs a single 8-pin, you're going to be able to run this off of like basically any 600 watt 80 plus power supply. The backplate is a highlight for me. I think it looks really, really nice on this card. They've done an exceptionally good job with the quick over the top of it there, and the pass-through is quite nice towards the back of the card. XFX embossed on the top as well, so you know which manufacturer it was. If the quick wasn't enough for you, then, well, then you know it's XFX, right? From the side profile on, it looks quite nice. There is a dual BIOS switch on the back of the card, which is really nice to have so that you can have different overclocking and profiling on the card, which is quite nice. Then there's another XFX on the bottom right over here and Radeon on the left. Then on the back of the card, which faces the board, there's really nothing to speak of. It's just the remainder of the shroud. At the rear of the card is a really nicely done Radeon. So that, well, you know that this is a Radeon. As if there wasn't enough Radeon on it, then they put like the biggest, flashiest one on the rear. The shroud as well, this plastic shroud is not bad. It's not the best ever. I do feel like it comes from the same factory that does Thrustmaster, because this plastic looks very, very, very similar now that I've got a permanent TMX Force and I've been testing out the GT80 this is very much Thrustmaster plastic, which is kind of cool because then it's like the Thrustmaster of GPUs. Then on the mounting plate, you've got your 3 display ports, your HDMI, and then XFX embossed there once again. It's a lot of branding and embossing and making sure that you know that this is an XFX and Radeon card. So what of that performance and testing? Well, I used the 5700G because I wanted to have an all AMD affair going on in there. 2 8GB DIMMs, 3200 CL16 in those, they're the Clev variants. I've got the E2002 TB NVMe backing that up once again. 850 watt power supply from Evetech. It is a high current gamer gold series, so there's going to be absolutely no issues with power delivery. All of that is tied together on MSI's B550M motor. All of the settings for both of these graphics cards in that system were completely default. I made sure that there was nothing creating extra performance, at least for the GPUs. I did, however, enable the gaming mode in the MSI center for the processor, just to give it like just a little bit extra boost. It was actually quite effective. It was hitting 4.6 for most of the testing. Now though, let's talk about some benchmark results. So CSGO, not much is really going to be happening there because it's basically a CPU game, and I love including it in tests because it is so CPU bound. It's a really good test for testing actual CPUs because you can have the exact same graphics card and have like massive performance differences just because of your processor. But a game like Dirt 4, for instance, is way more GPU bound, and the performance results and everything you're seeing here speak to that. And it was a lot more stable than before. I must say the 5600 XT in that test particularly has always had like a bit of a stutter and a jitter every now and then while you're going down the track. But the 6600 XT was absolutely flying. Dota 2, once again, another CPU game, nothing really there to talk about. But now we go over to Metro, which is a way more GPU bound game again, and those gaps get absolutely massive once again. There's huge gains for both titles, as much as like 30%. More of the same in Battlefront 2, being a GPU-based game, it just absolutely thumps the little old 5600 XT. Vermintide 2, which runs on Unreal, wasn't as big as I was expecting it to be. The gaps between the two were definitely up. So if you are looking at Unreal Engine-based performance, it does look like you are going to get some gains there as well. 3D Mark really sums up the tale quite nicely of the benchmarks and gives us the best overall performance increases between the two GPUs, especially where things get a little bit tougher, where you go into like 1440p and those kind of render spaces. Then this little 6600 XT starts to shine that much more. Now, this is a much smaller card than the 5600 XT as well, just bearing in mind. The 5600 XT has a massive cooler on it. It's thicker, it's wider, it's longer. I think you can see on camera there. I mean, it really is quite a lot bigger of a card, even if I put them back to back like that. You can see this thing it's beefy. It's really, really big. And because of that, it only hits 61 degrees in gaming, but it weighs, I would say, at least 20 or 30% more than the 6600 XT. It's noticeably heavier and bigger, but this ran at 5 degrees more. I never really heard the fans on either of them. There was absolutely nothing to report from the normal sound testing. It didn't make any noise. Even at running at 100% consistently, benchmark after benchmark, gaming, whatever I was doing on it, it ran simply flawlessly. I did do some RTX testing and play games like Call of Duty, and the performance there was really, really good, convincingly good. Good enough that you could feasibly get RTX at 100 FPS from a lot of games, or ray tracing out at 100 FPS, which is what confused me. Is when I watched some of the other reviews, people were like, it's not really a ray tracing solution. 100 FPS is good, even on 1080p. It's the point where like you get that high refresh rate feeling and things smooth out considerably. Like 60 or below, I would agree with you, but I got to actually disagree vehemently, having now used it and getting like 120 in COD. It can ray trace. I don't know why there's people are saying it can't. RDNA 2 is actually doing a pretty damn good job. And then they have things like Fidelity FX, which is like DLSS, where it takes a bigger picture, and then with AI, it restructures that picture into a smaller resolution without losing any of the performance. And they give this out to everybody for free. It's not just for NVIDIA or for AMD, it's for NVIDIA and AMD. Anybody can use Fidelity FX. I actually use it Funny enough, in MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries, one of the first games that ever came out with it, and it works really, really nicely. It's really nice to have. It makes things look sharp and extra crisp. AMD is kind of a good guy in that facet, I have to say. And this really is like a hero GPU for South Africa, because if you go on Carb right now, a second-hand 2070 Super, which this will actually be competitive with and beat in certain environments, it's like 12,000 Rand, second-hand. But this is 9.5 new. That means you're not going to have to worry about who mined on it, who overclocked it, who tried to ruin the GPU. It's a brand new product out of the box. And then you get to dictate how it gets to live its life. I think that's just a way better option for people that aren't really doing like streaming and video editing and that sort of stuff. There, having the RTX GPU is invaluable. I use NVIDIA Broadcast every single day of my life because I have an RTX graphics card and because I produce media and content and gaming content all the time. So I need that. But if you're not doing that and you just want a really solid gaming performance, then look no further than the 6600 XT. It runs, the case has 3 fans, it's got 2 in and 1 out in that environment. And like I said, it was 66 degrees maximum was what I saw in some of the Firestrike and TimeSpot testing. This is a very simple card. It has no frills, no fuss, no LED, nothing on it. It's very straightforward. If you want something that's clean, neat, does a really good job, you're not too worried about how it looks. It's very simplistic, very straightforward kind of card. Nice little like design elements on it. I don't think it's the prettiest thing I've ever seen, but at the price point, you can't ignore that value. For value, I think right now in South Africa, this gets an 11 out of 10. Anyway, that is all I have for you in this review. If you have enjoyed it, please hit us up with a like and subscribe, and I will see you on the flip side. 'Cause I'm falling in too quickly.